Well, hello, and this morning I'd like to discuss with you the Chronicle of St. Jerome and what he had to say about the birth of Christ and how he tied in other historical sources to the events described in the Gospels that were supposed to have occurred at the time that Christ was crucified. And I'm just simply reminded of that old saying, oh, what a tangled web we weave when we practice to deceive. Jerome, in approximately 380, wrote his chronicle, and it was an attempt to create a history book that put everything in chronological order, just as I discussed in my other video with you that Joseph Scaliger had done this by the order of the church back in the 1500s and created history for us, the history that nearly all the scholars accept and work within that framework and are careful not to upset it, whether it be right or wrong. And Josephus, it appears when we read his books, has things in a chronological order. And Eusebius in 311 CE attempted to do much the same thing, write a chronicle and put things in chronological order. In approximately 380 CE, Jerome wrote a preface to that document, and within that preface he says that Christ was born in the 42nd year of the rule of Augustus, and that he began to preach in the 15th year of Tiberius. So in doing that, and unmeaning to, he has told us much the same thing as what I stated to you, and when was Jesus born. He has placed a date earlier than the taxing by Cerinthus in 6 AD, and yet he has dated his birth after the death of Herod the Great. Now, St. Jerome was supposedly the person in history that wrote the Latin Vulgate for the Roman Catholic Church. And so he certainly was aware of what the early Gospels said. He was aware of what Matthew and Luke said. And the only thing that he substantiates by this statement is that Jesus was baptized and began his ministry in the 15th year during the reign of Tiberius. And he's disproved the birth of Christ under Herod the Great, and also disproved that he was born during the taxation of Cerinthus or Quirinius. Also, it just turns into a massive jumble of information, as I'll show you now. Quoting from his chronicle, Jesus Christ, according to the prophecies which had been spoken about him beforehand, came to the passion of in the 18th year of Tiberius. This would again jive pretty much with what we're told in the Gospel of John that after a 3-year ministry that Jesus was crucified. And he goes on to say, at which time we find these things written verbatim in other commentaries of the Gentiles. An eclipse of the sun happened. Bithynia was shaken by an earthquake, and in the city of Nicaea many buildings collapsed, all of which agree with what occurred in the passion of the Saviour. And indeed, Phlegon, who has an excellent calculator of the olympiads, also writes about this in his 13th book, writing thus. And for you Christians that are there getting all excited, thinking that I've proved the Gospels here, hold on to your horses. Quoting Phlegon, however, in the 4th year of the 202nd Olympiad, an eclipse of the sun happened, greater and more excellent than any that had happened before it. At the 6th hour, day turned into dark night, so that the stars were seen in the sky, and an earthquake in Bithynia toppled many buildings of the city of Nicaea. Now this happened in November 24th, 29 CE. This is the same year that Jesus was baptized. This is the year that Jerome says he began his ministry. This is the year that Luke says that Jesus was baptized and began his ministry. And you'll note too where this earthquake that toppled buildings occurred. In Bithynia, that's Turkey. The city of Nicaea, in Turkey, not in Judea. To complicate the matter more so as what we know as Istanbul, Turkey, and at one time was called Constantinople, and in the time of Constantine, when he went there, he called it the New Rome because he was making this his new capital of Rome, the eastern leg of the Roman Empire. And prior to that time, it was known as Jerusalem. So, what is he trying to tell us here? That Jesus was crucified in Turkey, not in Judea? This is where the earthquake occurred. This is where the solar eclipse was observed. In Turkey. Now we're told in the Gospels that the soldier watching Christ die on the cross saw these things happening. He saw the earthquake. Was Jesus crucified in Jerusalem, in Bithynia, and not in Judea? Let's pick this up with part 2.